and that'll show that that's the type of disease you have. So the condition of Parkinson's disease was originally described by its symptoms and then later discovered that the neurotransmitter dopamine was lacking in a certain part of the brain, and that was what was causing the tremor and the face problem and all the things that we see associated with Parkinson's disease.
So the dopamine was the trigger to the actual visual symptoms?
It was a lack of dopamine is what's called a neurotransmitter, and each nerve in the brain communicates with the nerve next to it by sending out a signal called a neurotransmitter.
Is that the thing that jumps over the synaptical cleft?
Oh, my goodness. Good thing I'm sitting down.
Why?
That was quite the leap of intelligence there. Fantastic.
Don't get used to it.
I love that. So
the
yes,
synapse, right?
The synapse, correct.
Oh, okay.
It's a neurotransmitter within the synapse. The synapse is basically the place where the impulse of electricity is conducted, and it's done through stimulation through neurotransmitters. And the neurotransmitter dopamine is congregated in an area called the substantia nigra of the brain. And it's all over the brain. It's used in other places, but it's much more concentrated in this area. And this area is an area that's associated with motor function. So motor function is your ability to move your hands, your arms, your face, all the different motor contractions and so on. So if that neurotransmitter is altered, such that occurs in Parkinson's disease or diminished, that affects the motor function. So most of the things associated with, at least initially, a Parkinson's disease deal with what's called movement disorders. The ability to move normally and fluidly is what gets impaired with Parkinson's.
If Parkinson's, I don't know the right term, if Parkinson's is coming on, if it's starting to show symptoms, is there a certain spot that it's going to start? Is there a first check?
I would say probably. This is not my field per se, so I'm basing it on my own observation. We're in neurosurgery, but we do see Parkinson's, and I'll explain why later why we would see someone with Parkinson's disease, because it's generally treated with medication. But the first symptom that is typically described is a tremor. And you know what a tremor is. It's a shaking generally of the hand or an extremity. And it's basically a frequency, and there's certain characteristics ones associated with Parkinson's disease. And we call that a pill rolling. So it's sort of the first finger and the thumb of a rolling of a pill in the hand. And that sort of tremor then can lead to other things, which we see as the rigidity. So rigidity is sort of walking like a tin man, if you remember from The Wizard of Oz, very stiff and rigid.
All right. Now, I don't mean to be gross, but I equate that walk with late-stage syphilis, because that's what happens, the rigid walk.
Well, I think that there's a lot of if you're ill in some other way, there's a lot of symptoms that can highlight one of a disease of
coexist.
Coexist, correct. But this is a symptom complex. Parkinson's disease is generally diagnosed with an examination and a symptom complex. There's not typically a scan or an MRI or some sort of test. However, that said, there are looking into what's called testing in the spinal fluid for certain proteins that are abnormal and typically found now in Parkinson's disease. So you can be perhaps diagnosed in the future with a spinal tap. But right now, you go see a neurologist or your family doctor who will subsequently refer you to a neurologist, and they'll do a series of physical testing. One of the testing they'll do is check your movement and fluidity of your arm.
For the people that are listening to this, that's wonderful. You can watch this. This is being live feeded on Facebook. So the demonstration of the pill rolling, people can watch that. If you've got questions, you can post the questions in the comments section. Show me the arm thing again. I think I got that.
Right. It's so, and you and I do it nice and smoothly and so on. And if someone were to give some resistance to the hand, an examiner, in someone with Parkinson's disease, it would cogwheel. So imagine gears, for example. It would go like that.
So it's not descending smooth. It's descending like a clock. Not like a second hand on a watch.
Perhaps that's even a better description.
Okay.
And that's some of the testing that's done. Walking, checking the gait, how someone walks. Typically, you see what's called a shuffle step, so that the steps are very small and frequent. So that's another characteristic. Also the face, what we call flat face or mask face, where there's very little expression. These are some of the things that come together to help diagnose Parkinson's disease.
Is there more Parkinson's disease per capita, or are we getting better at diagnosing it where previously it may not have been diagnosed?
I think it's such a characteristic symptom complex that any time a physician, whether, again, you go see your PCP or even anywhere, they can generally recognize it and identify it fairly quickly that this is an issue, and then get you on to subsequent evaluation. There's about 100,000 people that are diagnosed with Parkinson's disease. So it's generally a fairly common condition in the sense that it's a neurodegenerative condition. So the belief of how the dopamine becomes diminished is related to neurodegeneration. So if you want to think of a family of Parkinson's disease, another family member would be Alzheimer's disease. Okay. It's a disease that generally affects people when they're older, and it's related to diminished output of that neurotransmitter dopamine. So it's generally thought to be associated with neurodegeneration, basically a failure of that tissue in the brain to continue to pump out the dopamine that's needed.
I'm going to say something I suspect is ludicrous. Please tell me why it's ludicrous.
I love his music, by the way.
I'm sorry? Ludicrous? Well, we'll spend the second half of the show talking about music if you want. I have a deficiency of dopamine. Why is that not in a pill? Why is that not in a shot?
It is in a pill or shot. And
is it?
We haven't gotten into the treatments, but there
well,
is.
You're bringing up rap and stuff. I'm throwing me off.
Yeah, the treatments include the replacement of dopamine, and it works very well in a lot of people. The problem is, like anything, you give it for a while, and then it begins not to work.
Works less efficiently.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. So the idea L-DOPA was one of the first discoveries in the treatment of Parkinson's disease to treat Parkinson's disease with giving or replacing the dopamine. After a while, there was different chemicals that could block the breakdown of dopamine. So it's made naturally by the body, and if you can stop the breakdown of dopamine and keep it longer in the neurotransmitter, was another way to keep up that dopamine level.
Why does it break down? Is that just a natural part of?
Well, if going back to the synapse, your favorite location, the synapse is basically these neurotransmitters go out, and then they come back in, and they're reformed to be used again. So we have, billions of impulses that are going out every second. So we have to conserve those neurotransmitters. So they're pumped out and then pumped back in and then recycled to be used again.
I was about to say, it sounds like we're recycling.
Correct. So you have an ability to take another type of pill that can slow down the breakdown of that dopamine in the synapse area, and that can also improve the symptoms of someone with Parkinson's disease.
How startling is it to get a Parkinson's diagnosis? Because you're talking about this involves this, and so does Alzheimer's. And if you're talking about a neurological breakdown,
right,
as you explain it to people, it shouldn't be as scary, or should it be as scary?
Well, there's the motor dysfunction associated with Parkinson's disease, but there's also another set of symptoms associated with Parkinson's disease, and generally they're as time goes on. And that means as the disease progresses and tends to worsen over time. Generally speaking, there are some varieties of cognitive impairment. So it doesn't necessarily mean it's in the first year or the first 5 years, but after a period of time, Parkinson's disease patients will experience cognitive decline.
And that's just because your brain's not getting fed the dopamine it needs to be fed.
That's a great question, because is it the fact that the vast majority of people are already older that are diagnosed with Parkinson's disease? Is it the fact that the the disease so long it causes basically a cognitive decline, or is it just the fact that they're getting older? The hallmark of disease is not necessarily cognitive decline. It's most of the motor functions or dysfunctions that I described. But the brain cognitively will decline over time.
Anyway.
Yeah. But you're not. The interesting thing about Parkinson's disease is their general longevity, not necessarily quality of life, but their general longevity is normal. Lifespan is generally normal to anyone else. So it isn't like Parkinson's disease, which generally, after 2 or 3 years, it causes death in a lot of people. Not necessarily in that same time frame, but it's associated with fatality, whereas Parkinson's disease is generally not. But as I said, there's other symptoms associated with Parkinson's disease besides motor dysfunction. That could be depression, anxiety, hallucinations, constipation, sleep disorders, a loss of sense of smell. So there's a whole host of things outside of the motor dysfunction. And again, the reason for that is that neurotransmitter dopamine is not exclusive to the area of the brain that I described. It can be all over the brain. So dopamine is one of those major neurotransmitters we need to function our brain normally.
Normally, is it all over the brain?
Yes.
Okay.
But in certain areas, it's more concentrated.
Right. Jeff Bost of St. Barnabas is my guest, and we're talking about Parkinson's disease. This conversation will continue. Maybe a rap battle using Ludacris also in the second half of today's 10 o'clock hour in Teleforum.
Beaver County Radio proudly welcomes Fry Transportation to their family. You're listening to 99.3 FM and 1230 WBVP, live from the all-new Fry Transportation Studios. Back by popular demand, the 5th annual Beaver County Radio Notes on Local Entertainment Christmas Show will take place on Thursday, December 21st from 9 a.m. to 12 noon. The show is being presented by Tuska Shop and Save, East Rochester Shop and Save, and True Value Hardware at the East Rochester Shop and Save. The 5th annual Notes on Local Entertainment Christmas Show will be hosted by Beaver County Radio's Eddie Crow and Mike Romai, along with entertainment editor for the Beaver County Times, Scott Tatey. There will be special musical performances by the Hoot Owls, Better Think Twice, Don Savage, the Beaver Valley Choral Society, and J.D. Merkel. There will also be an appearance from the big guy from up north at 11 o'clock. The fun gets underway right after the 9 o'clock news on Thursday, December 21st. It's our way of wishing Beaver County a very Merry Christmas.
We wish you a Merry Christmas. We wish you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
The Beaver County Humane Society and Nally Elias & Associates, PC in Aliquippa, remind you that it's important to remember you should think before you adopt a new pet this holiday season. Many people think it's the ideal time to adopt a pet, but adopting a pet during the holidays isn't always a good idea. Pets need sufficient time to adjust to your home and new surroundings. Pets are a lifelong commitment, and many are returned after the excitement of the season fades. Think before you adopt this holiday season. Happy holidays from everyone at the Beaver County Humane Society and Nally Elias & Associates, PC, Aliquippa.
Beaver County Radio is your source for local news in Beaver County and surrounding areas. Tune in weekdays starting at 6:30 a.m. for news reports at the top and bottom of each hour with Curtis Walsh. Eddie Crow has afternoon news at the bottom of each hour, and news correspondents Sandy Giordano and Matt Durzik have reports from local school board and municipal meetings. You can also follow Beaver County Radio on our website at beavercountyradio.com and our Facebook page for breaking news as it happens. With all that coverage, you don't need to go anywhere else but Beaver County Radio News and beavercountyradio.com.
'Tis the season for giving, but you'll be getting more than you give this year when you stop in or call the Beaver Valley Auto Mall. Ask them how you can get 3 oil changes and tire rotations, up to 5 quarts for just $65 plus tax and disposal fees with approved credit. And all you have to do is apply for the all-new Jeep MasterCard. Purchases over $499 can be 0% for 6 months and 7% earning potential and qualified purchases. It's an incredible offer, and all you have to do is apply for your new Jeep MasterCard. What a perfect time to save some money and still have some left over to buy those extra holiday presents. It's true. Everyone's saving at the Beaver Valley Auto Mall Express Lane in Monaca. Happy holidays from everyone at the Beaver Valley Auto Mall.
And now, let's gather around the fireplace as your friends from Freedom United Federal Credit Union recite this year's Christmas poem.
'Twas the week before the holiday, and all through Beaver County, people were preparing their shopping list, the kids hoping for a big bounty.
Trips to the mall and a visit with Santa will happen with care, in hopes that money in your account will soon be there.
And just in time, to Freedom United Federal Credit Union you'll arrive. With a personal loan or home equity note, the holiday, you'll survive.
And so it ends, another happy holiday. And the gifts, they're quite a sight. Merry Christmas to all, and to all a good night.
Happy holidays from your friends at Freedom United Federal Credit Union. Member NCUA, Equal Housing Lender.
Your success is our success. We belong to you.
Novak Auto Parts understands safe travels. So while the road may be full of drivers or weather conditions may cause hazards, please remember that your safe arrival is the most important gift you can give this season. Happy holidays from Novak Auto Parts.
Beaver County Radio's news source, 99.3 FM, along with 1230 WBVP, and streaming at beavercountyradio.com.
And good morning on this Tuesday, December 19th, 2023. The Beaver County Radio weather forecast is calling for cloudy skies today with a high of 32 degrees. We'll go over the full details of your Beaver County weather forecast following this look at news. Following 2 days of deliberation, a federal jury has found the operators of the Brighton Rehabilitation and Wellness Center and the Mount Lebanon Rehabilitation and Wellness Center guilty of making false statements in connection with the payment of health care benefits and for the purpose of obstructing and impeding the investigation and proper administration of a matter within the jurisdiction of Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services. Comprehensive Healthcare Management Services, which operates Brighton Rehab, was convicted on 6 counts of the aforementioned crimes, while Mount Lebanon Operations was convicted on 4 counts. Other individual defendants were acquitted. Judge Robert J. Colville of Pittsburgh scheduled sentencing for the 2 guilty parties for May 2024, where the maximum sentence is $500,000, a 5-year probation period, or both. Western Pennsylvanians are getting a present at the pump this Christmas season, as AAA East Central's latest report shows a 7-cent decrease in the average price of a gallon of unleaded gas. This week's $3.46 average is down from last week's average of $3.53 by 7 cents, and down 34 cents from the average of $3.80 1 year ago. The Butler area matches the regional average of $3.46, with Pittsburgh coming in a few cents higher this week at $3.50 a gallon. Beaver County is higher still, with an average of $3.54 this week for an unleaded gallon of gas. Ground was broken yesterday on what will become a brand new academic facility for the Pennsylvania State Police in Hershey, with Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro and Lieutenant Governor Austin Davis joining Pennsylvania State Police Commissioner Christopher Paris for the ceremony yesterday. During his speech prior to the groundbreaking, Governor Shapiro spoke about the ambitions he wants to see fulfilled with this new facility.
We all recognize that policing has changed a lot over this last 60 years. Our cadets need facilities that prepare them for the experience that they will have as troopers today, and that is exactly what they will get, a facility that will be able to meet their needs. This new academy right here in Hershey will be a state-of-the-art facility, second to none in this country. I want us to be the best, and we will be the best with this new facility.
Again, that is Governor Josh Shapiro, that audio courtesy of Commonwealth Media Services. As was reported yesterday, Pittsburgh-based U.S. Steel was acquired by Japan-based Nippon Steel in a multi-billion-dollar all-cash deal. Following the sale, Senator Bob Casey released a statement showcasing his concern about the deal. Quote, "The United States Marquis Steel Company should remain under American ownership. From initial reports, this deal appears to be a bad deal for Pennsylvania and for Pennsylvania workers. I'm concerned about what this means for the steel workers and the good union jobs that have supported Pennsylvania families for generations, for the long-term investment in the Commonwealth, and for American industrial leadership, unquote. That is from Senator Bob Casey. The acquisition of U.S. Steel was reported to be for $14.1 billion, which nearly doubled the offer from rival Cleveland-Cliffs earlier this year. U.S. Steel will keep its name and its headquarters in Pittsburgh, where it will become a subsidiary of Nippon Steel. PennDOT has announced that all driver license and photo centers will be closed Saturday, December 23rd through Monday, December 25th in observance of the Christmas holiday. That includes the Full Service Center in Harrisburg. Customers may still obtain a variety of driver and vehicle products and services, including photo ID and vehicle registration renewals, driver history services, driver license and vehicle registration restoration letters, ability to pay driver license or vehicle insurance restoration fees, and driver license and photo ID duplicates, among others, online through PennDOT's Driver and Vehicle Services website. Authorities say one person was found dead after an early morning explosion and fire at a hotel in the heart of Pennsylvania's Amish-related tourism area. State police in Lancaster County said the blast was reported shortly after 2:30 a.m. Monday at the Bird in Hand Family Inn and Lancaster County community of Bird in Hand. Trooper James Grothy said first responders reported heavy fire and smoke. Grothy said one person was found dead, and a preliminary investigation indicates that this appeared to be a propane explosion. The name of the person killed was not immediately released.
Here's the Beaver County forecast.
Cloudy skies today with a high of 32 degrees, mostly clear tonight with a low of 27. Partly cloudy tomorrow with a high of 43 degrees, cloudy Thursday with a high of 45, cloudy Friday with a high of 46 degrees. That's a look at news for now. I'm Matt Durzik for Beaver County Radio News, 99.3 FM, 1230 WBVP, and streaming worldwide at beavercountyradio.com.
It is Teleforum. It is AM 1460 and 1230 and 99, and Jeff Bost is here from St. Barnabas. We're talking about Parkinson's disease. I think I made it more doom and gloom than it actually is. It's not the end of the world. You're talking about things that connect, that could be more doomy and gloomy. But I've got, off the top of my head, I've got three friends that have Parkinson's. I haven't noticed. I don't notice. That may be naive of me. So, well, I haven't noticed, so what's the big deal? But it's not all doom and gloom, is it?
No, and knowing your friends probably are still functional in a lot of ways.
Yes.
Probably coping with it. And, one of the good things about Parkinson's disease is the fact that it's been discovered decades ago, centuries ago, actually. So the idea of treatments and things being worked on to help improve someone with Parkinson's disease is really well established, and medications and therapies and so on. So the idea of having Parkinson's disease is certainly not what someone would want. However, it is copable, and you can get through with some support, and you'll need support to get through almost anything in life.
True.
So the idea of having this condition, which is generally, as I said, it's not necessarily it's going to decrease lifespan. It's more about adapting and coping to it. Overall, there's about 10 million people worldwide that have Parkinson's disease. So it's not an uncommon condition.
All right.
As far as the human species, men are more affected than women in general. For whatever reason, no one seems to know what that is. We talked earlier about treatments. Some of the advanced treatments are really cutting edge nowadays. The biggest disability associated with a lot of people who have Parkinson's disease is the tremor. The idea of actually trying to do something if you have a tremor. The ability to walk is another. You have difficulty walking. Your balance is affected. Your shuffled gait, you can only go several feet per minute because you're not moving your feet very far. So those are really the biggest disabilities, mobility and actually using your hands.
Is there an undoing that's possible? If I'm struggling with my gait, can medication help with that, or does medication just retard the further problems with that?
They've seen tremendous benefits with medication, as I said in the first half, but the problem is with a lot of these medications, they tend to build up a tolerance. And so you're always sort of switching, which is, again, there's lots of different Parkinson medicines out there that they're using to try to increase the dopamine level. But it's interesting, not all medicines are what you need necessarily to improve your condition. And one of the biggest factors that can help is exercise. mobility and keeping moving have shown to have a significant benefit to someone who has Parkinson's disease, whether it's weightlifting, whether it's ballroom dancing, whether it's boxing. All these things have shown an improved fluidity, meaning the fluidness of your movements improve with those type motions. So those are really cutting-edge things that people are starting to use.
Do they improve because it increases blood flow, and increasing blood flow in the brain helps with the synapse, or do we know why?
I can't say exactly how it works, but I think the idea of doing something that is similarly repetitive, the boxing, for example, using your hands and hitting a bag, the movement, the fluid movements of dancing, for example, ballroom dancing, the wide sweeping motions and the movements, it changes the parts of the brain that are being used. And it actually can improve how people move. And it's building the muscles that are within the body as far as making them more able to move is also important. So all these things have shown benefits in people, significant benefits beyond the use of medications to help bring someone back as far as mobility.
If you're diagnosed with Parkinson's, is it too late to try and offset the effects with movement? Or can you still slow things down by saying, okay, I'm going to try and get ahead of it? And how much time does it buy before you have to get medications involved?
Yeah, I wouldn't say there's one or the other. I would say it's a combination of all the above. You want to do the exercise. You want to start on the medication. You don't necessarily see a doctor in the early phases of a condition, a little bit of pill rolling and so on. It might bring you concern, but it's when it becomes impacting your life, impacting your ability to have a bowl of cereal in the morning, impacting your ability to cross a room. Then you see the doctor, and generally speaking, at the time of diagnosis, medications are started. But it doesn't mean or exclude the fact that exercise and other unconventional treatments can be started. And those things work hand in hand. The idea of the medication and exercises and things that you can do to help yourself.
This got diagnosed. This got discovered by Parkinson, like you said, over a century ago.
Two centuries now.
2 centuries. You know what? You're right.
Yeah.
Wow. 2 centuries ago, this gets sorted out. Was it always an issue, was it more leaning an issue towards the older population?
Yes. Parkinson's disease is a disease of aging. There's no doubt that you're more susceptible for it. Generally speaking, the vast majority of people are over the age of 50 when diagnosed with Parkinson's disease. So it isn't like some types of Alzheimer's disease, which can come in your middle age or 30s or 40s. This is generally related to being older. There's a genetic component to Parkinson's disease. There's an environmental component to Parkinson's disease.
Really?
And there's a lifestyle component of Parkinson's disease. We don't know which one plays the biggest role, but they probably work in interaction. And the reason that you want to, or the way you might want to think about this is similar to type 2 diabetes. Type 2 diabetes.
What's 1 and what's 2?
Well, type 1 diabetes. Type 1 diabetes has a genetic link to it.
All right.
Type 1 diabetes doesn't necessarily always show up, even if you have the genes related to it. But what can occur is there's some outside or external environmental stimulus, whether it's a virus or some other outside factor that can play into the role of developing that disease. And Parkinson's disease is thought to be in some way related to that, whether it's an environmental trigger. They believe toxins in our environment may be associated with that, whether it's related to our lifestyle, whether it's high-fat diets or lack of exercise or some underlying health style, smoking, or is it related to genetics? So the combination of these three aspects play a role in Parkinson's disease as far as we know. But again, nobody really knows for sure what's causing the dopamine to be diminished other than it's a neurodegenerative condition. When you do an autopsy, you see those cells aren't working properly.
Where is the dopamine produced?
In the substantia nigra. It's a deep part of the brain.
Okay. That's that word you used earlier that sounds Latin.
Yeah.
Is it Latin?
I would assume so, yes.
Substantia Niagara.
Sort of like that.
I got closer than I would have guessed. What part of the brain is that?
It's very deep in the brain.
Okay, so you can't go in and tune it.
Yes, you can.
Can you?
Glad you brought that up.
Okay.
It's almost like I asked you to bring that up.
I need my Substantia Niagara tuned.
Well, have you ever heard of a deep brain stimulator? Deep brain stimulators came out in the late 90s.
Oh, I thought you meant like a really good book. This is a mechanical thing?
This is an actual implant.
Oh,
this is an implant. It's called a deep brain stimulator.
All right.
And I actually, Dr. Maroon and I, when we were at Allegheny General at the time, actually developed a program along with Dr. Don Whiting, who is currently chairman of the Department of Neurosurgery at Allegheny General, developed a program for implanting deep brain stimulators in people with Parkinson's disease who had severe tremor. And to the degree when I mean severe tremor, they had to go into a nursing home.
Life-altering.
Because they could not feed themselves because their hands were so tremulous.
Okay.
And so at that time, that was sort of cutting edge, and it still remains somewhat cutting edge. But that part of the brain, we were able to put a small probe with an electrode at the very end, stimulate that part of the brain that I described to increase the amount of dopamine and thereby decrease the amount of tremor. And it was run with a little battery pack that went under the skull and tunneled up into your chest.
No way.
And it looks like a little pacemaker. And that technology continues to explode within this country for people with all kinds of movement disorders, whether it's chorea movements related to, for example, Huntington's chorea. Mm-hmm. Is it related to Parkinson's disease, MS, other conditions that have essential tremor? It's being used.
Is it? I got to ask, this is completely off the subject. How weird is it that you find yourself one day, you look down, you go, we're putting electrodes in this dude's brain?
Well, the most interesting part, I was fortunate to be part of the surgical team, is that it's done while the person's awake.
No.
Yes, because you don't want to.
What, are they guiding you in? Nope, that's not it. Nope, that's not it. His foot starts shaking. Well, we're closed.
It's almost like that.
Is it really?
Almost like that. So, for example, you're doing you do the opening of the brain while the patient's asleep, then you wake them up and you start to place the probe.
Yeah.
And you want to get the right spot. So you wake the person up and you tell them to hold their arm up and you see their tremor.
Oh my God, they're awake and helping you with the diagnostic and the location of the probe.
Exactly. But it goes beyond that. So some people are more affected. For example, there's people that are more affected as they play guitar. So there's a guitar brought in the room, in the operating room, and the patient's playing guitar, and all of a sudden they can play normally, whereas before they couldn't.
And that's how you know. Yep, that's the spot. That's where we put it.
That's where we put it. Yeah.
That is amazing. Now, how many spots are you allowed to get wrong before you say we're gonna try again in a couple of days?
Well, you try to do
I know you try
to do your best job,
but the guy goes from being able to play the guitar to being able to play the ukulele.
Yeah. Well, it's not quite that way. But
you're talking about how big is the probe?
Millimeters.
Okay.
Millimeters. 2 millimeter space. So it's but this is all done with stereotactic trajectory. So
okay, now dumb it down. What does that mean?
That just means that dimensionally we do an MRI or a CAT scan and get the measurements of the skull, and then we lock them into a computer. And then we put the person into a frame where their skull does not move.
Like a halo.
Mm-hmm. And we use computer guidance to bring that probe into the exact location that we described will have that part of the brain. And it's generally about a 2 millimeter space that you want to shoot for.
Is that why every once in a while you'll see somebody getting a brain surgery and they're literally wide awake playing the guitar or playing the violin?
That's one of the reasons.
Okay.
Another would be, for example, if a tumor or some sort of mass is near what's called the motor structure, your ability to move. So we know that part of your brain is a very small strip within the brain, and if you get too close to it, they may not be able to use their face or their arm or their fingers. So at that spot, you may wake the patient up and have them continuously move their hand, for example, that make sure it doesn't become weak as you start operating in that area of the brain.
Why is the brain, what was it called, the strip, a small strip part?
Well, there's a motor strip.
The motor strip?
And a sensory strip. The homunculus is what it's called, the motor part.
Why is it so small in the brain? Just curious as to your opinion. That sounds like something in the brain that would be important for the body. Or for the species, for the animal.
The motor strip is actually fairly big. I mean, it's a fairly broad area. But again, getting back to the Parkinson's disease and the idea of this deep brain stimulator. So this was back in the 90s that we started doing this, and it's actually other centers across the country were doing it. But it's really exploded since then. And what they found out was in those Parkinson's patients and people with tremor, they had some other side effects related to having a deep brain stimulator. They became, for example, if someone had an addiction or some kind of obsession, that also decreased.
Really?
Right. So now they're using it for obsessive compulsive disorder. They're using it for weight loss. They're using it for other psychological problems like depression to decrease the symptoms related to that. So it's not just for tremor anymore.
Anything that dopamine has anything to do with, it sounds like.
May have a significant impact. And one of the biggest centers in the country, actually, that are working on this are at WVU. They have one of the biggest deep brain stimulator centers in the world right now, looking at different applications for the deep brain stimulator.
Are people, obviously you can't talk specifics, but patients that you had that had to have that because the tremors were so bad, did that benefit them to the point that they were able to take care of themselves again? Can you undo, or are you just stopping?
We actually, and this is actually a great question. At the end of our time at Allegheny General Hospital, we were fairly established, had done a number of probably 100 or so patients with the deep brain stimulator. And we brought some of those people back, and people who had been in nursing homes, as I described, they were able to be discharged from a nursing home. Who gets discharged from a nursing home?
That's brilliant.
And there were other people that were wheelchair confined, and they were able to get out of the wheelchair. It was really, it had a profound effect not only on the patient, but also on the caregivers at that time.
And the families and
everybody.
That's
everybody.
Absolutely brilliant. Yeah. How much do we not know about Parkinson's?
Well, as I said earlier, we don't know necessarily the cause of what's causing the decrease in the dopamine production. Is it just an age-related phenomena? Is it related to genetics? Is it environment? Is it the fact that there's heavy metals in the water? Is there some other toxin that's causing this? And I think that's one of the biggest mysteries that are still out there. Is there a way to prevent it? And I don't think, Alzheimer's disease, there's more and more information on how you might be able to prevent it. Exercise has been shown to have a great deal in decreasing the amount of Alzheimer's disease. We know certain diets may be helpful. Mediterranean diet, for example, less fat. But again, we don't know the cause of these conditions. And so that'll help us in the future if we find out the cause, how to treat it.
Jeff Bost is my guest. What should I have asked you about Parkinson's that I didn't? I got schooled up. Can you put a probe in somebody's head to help with Alzheimer's? That's sticking electronics in people's brain. That is absolutely astounding to me.
Yeah. I don't know. Alzheimer's disease is a little more destructive as far as the plaques and the inflammation, and that's why it's generally a terminal condition. Mm-hmm. So I don't know if it's going to be for that. But I think the idea of a condition diagnosed 2 centuries ago and then eventually developing a deep brain stimulator. I mean, that time frame and that time track of that advancement, I think, the future, who knows what we're going to have. So I think the idea that these conditions are stagnant, you have Parkinson's disease, that's sort of it. I think the future holds new cures and new treatments for these type diseases.
We're getting real good at sorting out stuff to keep us alive, aren't we?
Yes. Yes, we are. And hopefully that's good for a lot of people.
Yeah. What should I have asked you that I didn't?
I think we covered a lot. I think Parkinson's disease is one of those things that you should not ignore if you're having a tremor, if you're having symptoms related to gait problems. People were saying, "Why aren't you smiling? You used to smile all the time." These things may be little signs that maybe you should have an evaluation.
Jeff Bost, wonderful talking to you. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas, Eddie.
Happy holidays. Jeff Bost of St. Barnabas, my guest. It's Teleforum on Beaver County Radio. We're drilling and putting plugs in our brains. That's so Mystery Science Theater 3000.
This is Curtis Walsh, news director and executive producer of digital media for Beaver County Radio, wishing you and your family a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year this holiday season.
Tom Sipes Demolition is a one-stop shop for demolition services. Their over 38 years experience enables them to understand and anticipate their customers' needs before they do. Whatever your demolition requirements are, including asbestos removal, Tom Sipes Demolition can do the job best. They have the experience, equipment, expertise, qualifications, and professionalism to handle all your demolition needs. No job too big or too small. Tom Sipes Demolition at 724-495-2712.
Merry Christmas from all of us at City Rescue Mission. This is Jack Lynn. With your help, this month we will serve hundreds of people who have next to nothing. We enjoy the Christmas season of giving, and just for the price of a cheeseburger, your gift to the City Rescue Mission can help provide a warm bed and a Christmas meal for the hungry, hurting, and homeless. Help your neighbors in need overcome their desperate circumstances this season. Go to cityrescuemission.org and donate today.
Make the holiday special with a delicious box of chocolates from Roseland Candy Castle in New Brighton. For over 100 years, Roseland Candy has continued to demonstrate unmatched passion for chocolates. Roseland chocolates are made from scratch with only the finest and freshest ingredients. Roseland's has luscious cherry cordials, peanut butter meltaways, chocolate-covered pretzels, and so much more. Come visit the area's chocolate experts in New Brighton. Roseland's will ship their fresh homemade chocolates to your friends and family directly from their store. Order online at roselandcandy.com, and remember, Christmas just wouldn't be Christmas without Roseland Candy.
Roseland Candy Castle can ship your chocolates anywhere. Visit them online at roselandcandy.com. Celebrate the holidays with chocolates from Roseland Candy Castle, located on 5th Avenue in New Brighton. Here is a question that is very easy to answer. Would you rather be sold something or get professional help and advice that ultimately leads to a strategy that best suits your needs? Tom Young at First Consultants Inc. in Beaver has a unique approach that has won over the trust of even the most skeptical clients.
Everybody that's selling is looking for a profit. I focus on creating strategies that are in the client's best interest.
Ask yourself this: what have you got to lose? The answer might be a fortune. Get financial strategies instead of a pitch about a product. Visit firstconsultantsinc.com or be a part of Tom Young's live simulcast presentation on the third Tuesday of each month beginning at 9:10 a.m. on Beaver County Radio and Facebook Live. All advisory services are offered through PL Wealth LLC. PL Wealth is a federally registered investment advisor. PL Wealth is no way affiliated with First Consultants Inc., nor is First Consultants Inc. a registered investment advisor.
In revolutionary times, to be a patriot meant devoting oneself to the greater good and serving one's country in order to preserve the quality of life for everyone. Being a patriot can still bring great rewards in much the same way when you engage with Patriot Home Care in the Beaver Falls area. It can happen as an in-home care and general assistance provider for your loved one, or as a place for you to serve others as a Patriot Home Care employee. Do the patriotic thing today. Call Patriot Home Care, 724-506-8911. Let's all join together to serve the community. Airtime provided by Beaver Area Heritage Foundation.
When you talk about community involvement and safety, the name Fry stands at the forefront in Beaver County. Fry Transportation's mission is to continue to raise the bar as the gold standard in their industry by providing the safest, most reliable, and cost-efficient transportation service in Beaver County through their strong relationships with their community's best-in-their-class drivers, equipment, and technology. There's nothing more important than the safety of their students, employees, and community members. Fry Transportation, where the quality of their organization is characterized by the makeup of the individual behind the wheel.
Let's face it, work is a large part of your life. Why not choose a job that allows the opportunity of a fulfilling career working with people who appreciate you? St. Barnabas Health System is looking for extraordinary, service-minded people to join our team. Earn and learn with career opportunities on our clinical, housekeeping, and food service teams. For more information and to apply, visit stbarnabashealthsystem.com or call 724-444-JOBS. Jobs that are apart from the ordinary. Find them at St. Barnabas Health System.
Tune in to Live Mike with Mike Romai, presented by Heritage Valley Health System. Weekdays from 6:30 a.m. to 9 a.m. It's an all-new show on Beaver County Radio, where Mike discusses the issues important to Beaver County. There's also special guests, weather, sports with Matt Durzik, and news every half hour with Curtis Walsh. So tune in to Live Mike with Mike Romai, weekdays, right here on Beaver County Radio.
Commissioner Tony Amadeo, I'd like to wish everybody a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, Merry Christmas. Don't forget the Christmas show, the big Christmas live music extravaganza. Day after tomorrow. Tomorrow's show, today just has flown. Tom Young, first hour, Jeff Bost, second hour. Tomorrow's show, Dale Reckless joins me, MRS Physical Therapy. He's going to be coming in. Thursday's show, everything under the sun, holiday and live music, and it's going to be spectacular. Coming up after the news here in about 11 and a half minutes, I am going to right a wrong. I messed up yesterday. I didn't mess up. I zoned out, which I guess is a mess up. I'm going to make it right. Your chance at Rosalind's Candy coming up.
You're listening to 99.3 FM, presented by St. Barnabas, in addition to 1230 WBVP Beaver Falls. Beaver County Radio's news source. 99.3 FM, along with 1230 WBVP, and streaming at beavercountyradio.com.
And good morning on this Tuesday, December 19th, 2023. The Beaver County Radio weather forecast is calling for cloudy skies today with a high of 32 degrees. We'll go over the full details of your Beaver County weather forecast following this look at news. Following 2 days of deliberation, a federal jury has found the operators of the Brighton Rehabilitation and Wellness Center and the Mount Lebanon Rehabilitation and Wellness Center guilty of making false statements in connection with the payment of health care benefits and for the purpose of obstructing and impeding the investigation and proper administration of a matter within the jurisdiction of Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services. Comprehensive Healthcare Management Services, which operates Brighton Rehab, was convicted on 6 counts of the aforementioned crimes, while Mount Lebanon Operations was convicted on 4 counts. Other individual defendants were acquitted. Judge Robert J. Colville of Pittsburgh scheduled sentencing for the 2 guilty parties for May 2024, where the maximum sentence is $500,000, a 5-year probation period, or both. Western Pennsylvanians are getting a present at the pump this Christmas season, as AAA East Central's latest report shows a 7-cent decrease in the average price of a gallon of unleaded gas. This week's $3.46 average is down from last week's average of $3.53 by 7 cents, and down 34 cents from the average of $3.80 1 year ago. The Butler area matches the regional average of $3.46, with Pittsburgh coming in a few cents higher this week at $3.50 a gallon. Beaver County is higher still, with an average of $3.54 this week for an unleaded gallon of gas. Ground was broken yesterday on what will become a brand new academic facility for the Pennsylvania State Police in Hershey, with Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro and Lieutenant Governor Austin Davis joining Pennsylvania State Police Commissioner Christopher Paris